What is up, YouTube? Trollkin here. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Draw Phase. Glad to see you stop by. And in today's video, we have a awesome Teemo deck. It is finally refined. I consider this the best list from what we have so far in terms of hidden cards and the archetype. And it has just been doing very well on TTS, and it's just a lot of fun. But before we get into the deck list and the deck profile, if you haven't already, please subscribe. You automatically enter yourself to win a Proving Grounds box set when the game comes out in October. I should mention it will be in English, obviously. But other than that, with that being said, let us get straight to the deck list. So I was playing for a couple days now on stream, and I got some good games, and I figured a good solid deck list that is relatively consistent. You can change maybe one or two cards if you would like, but obviously let's go look over the legend for those that are unfamiliar. Teemo Swift Scout, you may pay 1 rune to hide a card with hidden instead of paying the power cost, which is really strong. It's really good because it stops you from, obviously sacrificing runes and recycling them. So you actually gain so much tempo with resources that you can pretty much play anything you want, and it's just like you gain so much tempo. The other effect is that for 1, and you can tap Teemo, put a Teemo unit you own into your hand from your champion zone or the board. So, once Teemo has been revealed and hidden, or you can sometimes even play it to an open battlefield, you can pop it back into your hand and paying its cost again to put it face down. Obviously, the one Teemo that gives +4 or the strategist Teemo, that is your choice depending on the situation. So, running into the runes, we are running 10 mine runes. That's right, 10. Like I said, I am a big fan of resource management, so if I can put cards in the deck that don't really necessarily need a lot of power, then I will so, especially with Teemo, because you have that ability just to pay 1 rune instead of the power cost. It is very strong, and you have tons of resources throughout the whole entire game. On top of that, we're running 2 chaos runes. We only need this for a couple cards, one of which you can probably switch out, and then you can invest more into chaos runes, but we'll go over that in a second. For battlefields, we are running Zon Warrens. When you conquer here, discard 1, then draw 1. Digging into your deck is always good, and also sometimes it has a negative impact on your opponent. Right? If they're a control deck and then they don't want to be wasting things, then they're just going to have to commit to taking this battlefield and discarding. Yes, they do draw, but sometimes those choices are tough for them because they need all the spells in hand. After that, we are running Grove of the God Willow. When you hold here, draw 1. Very easy for Teemo, because sometimes it is in a situation where your opponent and you have a hidden card there, and you got some other dude there. They don't want to really kind of find out yet what the hidden card is, because it could be so many different things. And then if you do this, if they decide not to invade into the battlefield, then you get to draw 1, which is always good. Digging into your deck is always good. And the most important card there is Bandletree. Sorry, not card, but battlefield for Teemo. When you hide you may hide an additional card here. You can do so many crazy combos with this. You can do so many different things, and I've learned playing Teemo in the last couple of days that there are some crazy interactions that like really shift the game in your favor, especially with Ember Monk and all these other crazy stuff. So if you would almost always want to have Bandletree as your chosen battlefield. It is crucial to victory. So important. Okay, I wouldn't say crucial, but it is like incredibly important, because when you get to hide 2 cards, it's just you get such an advantage over your opponent. So going into the main deck, Teemo Strategist for 2 and 1 power, for 2 might. It has the hidden ability of when I defend or I'm played from hidden, which is cool because it can also defend right onto the base, and then the effect triggers. Reveal the top 5 cards of your main deck. Deal 1 damage to an enemy unit here for each card with hidden, then recycle them. So obviously, let's talk about some of the cards that are benefiting from this. Mainly Nocturne. If you get 1 or 2 Nocturnes, which would be awesome, 3 is kind of like impossible. But Nocturne's ability reads, it also has ganking. We'll just go over that. It's a 4 4 rune and 1 power cost unit for 4 might. Has ganking. When you look at when you look at cards from the top of your deck, and don't draw them and see me, you may play me for 1 power. Ridiculous. So if you flip strategist and it happens to be one of the cards there, you get to play it wherever you want to for free. Well, not for free, for 1 power, but that is incredibly strong. If you get 2 or 3 of these, that's insane. You know, you're developing 8 to 12 might on board. Crazy combo, really, really good, really consistent. Is like kind of like the backbone of the deck to kind of draw into this. We have other ways of finding Nocturne from our deck by revealing. But other than that, also the fact that you can deal up to 5 damage to a unit when this is played from hidden or defending is incredibly strong. Incredibly strong. So yeah, I think this is the better of the Teemos. The other one is pretty decent as well. It is more of a fighter, right? We'll look at Teemo Scout for 2 runes, very clean, no power cost card for 1 might only. However, when you play me, give me +3 this turn. So, you know, it comes from hidden. And again, we are not spending any type of resource with power. We just have to tap a rune in order to put this back on board. And also, you can really confuse your opponent once you start putting either the strategist or a scout back into your hand, because then they have to go into this like decision-making process of what is actually hidden. You know, what are the possibilities? Going further into the deck, we are running Stack Deck for 1 rune at action speed. Look at the top 3 cards of your main deck, put 1 into your hand, and recycle the rest. So in a meta and in this deck, it is really important to base off the situation of what you're reading on your board, what matchup you have. Sometimes you just need to dig into your deck, and, you know, this is just a really good card. Stack Deck is awesome. If you run purple and you're running more of a control-y deck like in Teemo or even in Annie, you know, you just run this card because being able just to look at the top 3 cards of your deck is insane. Also, I do not believe... Yep, and you don't draw them. So you can actually chain Nocturne into this as well, which is insane. Because it is looking at the top 3 cards of your deck, and then when you look at the top 3 cards of the deck without drawing, this triggers Nocturne as well. So you're developing, not only you're picking what you want, but you're also developing Nocturne on a battlefield you control or your base. Another tricky hidden card we are running is Blast Cone Phase. So for 2 energy, 1 power, with 2 might, hidden ability, when you play me, give a unit, or it can be hidden. When you play me, give a unit -2 this turn to a minimum of 1. Really cool card because not many people actually play this card. So when you do reveal it, they're like, okay, for 1, I didn't expect the -2 into my maths when it comes to conquering a battlefield. And also the extra 2 might is relative, right? So if this is on Vandal Tree and you got like another Teemo Scout, that's just really strong. You know, just tricky cards. You can also just develop this on board because when you do play it, right, and it is your turn to, like on your turn, you can play it just a -2 something as well and develop a body. So really cool hidden card. I really like it. And of course, a deck wouldn't be a deck without a Poro. We are running Mystic Poro. Now, the point of the deck is to play hidden cards, right? So we just need this in our deck so that turn 1, I mean, ideally, obviously, with the vision, you want to go into a Nocturne. More than likely, like more than none, it's just not going to happen, right? Like, it's very rare that it does happen, but if it does, that's awesome. You know, your first turn, you're developing 6 might on board, which is crazy, right? You do sacrifice a power because of Nocturne's because of Nocturne. However, it is worth it. You know, 1 power for 6 might on board. Your first turn is insane. Poros has just been like consistently good. All of them I feel like are awesome. The Deflect Poro is good. The Shield Poro, the Assault Poro. None of them have been bad, right? So, it's just one of those cards we need early game because we want to conquer a battlefield and we want to start hiding cards. Speaking of other cards to play early and like conquer a battlefield, score a point, and start hiding cards, Watchful Sentry has been pretty useful because, one, you know, if it dies, you draw a card. It goes in early without any sacrificing of a power, and, you know, you can start hiding cards as well. Other than that, we are running Fight or Flight. This could actually be a game-winning card. In the gameplay that is coming up, I used Fight or Flight to win the game. Also from Hidden, right? So one thing your opponent has to consider is like what is underneath what is hidden at the battlefield, and then the mind games start, right? When they start seeing that, okay, he's running a lot of hidden stuff, then they kind of just have to like double, and sometimes like based off those decisions, they make mistakes, and then you will capitalize on the mistakes and most likely win the game. So fight or flight, 2 runes, hidden ability. You can hide it for 1 power, but with our Teemo, remember we're only hiding it for 1 rune. At action speed, move a unit from a battlefield to its base. So you could do this defensively and or offensively. You can even, if you hold 1 battlefield, play fight or flight to move 1 enemy unit from a battlefield and then conquer it with a unit to win the game. And there's nothing they can do about it unless they have a defy. Insane. So that's really good. I love fight or flight. One cool combo is Tide Turner into Ember Monk. We'll go over Ember Monk in just a second. So for 2 runes and 2 might, you can hide it. When you play me, you may choose a friendly unit, move me to its location, and it to my original location. Now the wording's a little like funny, but basically when you play it from hidden, you pick another unit, a friendly unit, right? And in 2v2, this counts as one of your like partners units, just so you know. And then they just basically swap positions. So the ideal combo here is with Ember Monk. So we'll go over Ember Monk right now. 4 for 4. When you play a card from hidden, give me +2 this turn. So when you are playing Tide Turner, also whatever is on the battlefield, let's just say it's just a Vision Poro, right? You flip over Tide Turner, it switches with Ember Monk. Ember Monk actually triggers, right, because you've played a hidden card. It now becomes a 6, and then early game you have 8 might on a battlefield, and it just messes up with your opponent's strategies a lot. So that's the main theme of the deck. Trick your opponent into making wrong decisions, basically. And yeah, this combo is really strong. It's very, very good. And it's just very cool and consistent. So, and the cool thing is like you can also play like another card that is hidden from the other battlefield if you are holding, and then it becomes from a 6 to an 8 might unit, and then with like let's just say a Mystic Poro on board, you got 10 might on board. So really cool combo, messes up your opponent's strategy very consistently. Also, Sneaky Deckhand, great card. This card was basically made for Teemo. Like Riot made this game just to be put in a Teemo deck. 3 runes, 2 might, and you may play me to an open battlefield. So if you're going second, right, you develop your 2 runes and you get your other one. You can play this directly onto a battlefield, right? And then you can start hiding stuff. The cool thing is, even though Teemo is your legend, right? So for instance, like I said, this is turn 2, right? And your first turn, but you're going second. This is turn 2. You can still pay the 1 power to hide things. You don't necessarily have to. Like if you're all tapped out from your from turn 2 and your 3 runes, you can play this onto an open battlefield. You score a point, right? Because you are conquering, and once it is conquered, you could pay a power to play any of the hidden cards, which is extremely strong turn 1. Well, your first turn at turn 2, if that makes sense to you guys. So yeah. If you're playing Teemo, you play this deck. You can do a lot of things, and you can speed up your momentum. Because as soon as you start hiding things, trust me, your opponent has to start making some critical decision making. We're playing Consult the Past. You guys should be pretty familiar with this card. You can play it raw for 4 runes. Hide it, and at reaction speed, you draw 2 cards. If you're running blue and any type of control build, then you just play those cards. We talked about Ember Monk and we talked about Nocturne. Let's go talk about Riptide Rex. So in a meta where there's going to be a lot of big dudes, right? This is mainly meant for Volley Bears, for and Set and Leona decks, and even some Darius decks, right? You just want to be able to have removal on a stick, right? The important part, if you do fall behind and Set is becoming a problem, because I essentially put this card in the deck to counter Set, right? And his unit, whatever it may be, comes back after burning the buff, right? And spending a power. Then you can play this, right? Just to deal 6 damage to make sure that that set doesn't get, or that unit doesn't get buffed again, and then come back the next turn. It's a really solid card. You do sacrifice 2 power in Calm Runes, however, or Mind Runes, I'm sorry. However, it's worth it, right? Like I said, we're not burning like none of these cards except for Blast Cone Fae, which is usually going to be played from hidden, which is one. Teemo is going to be played from hidden. Maybe Nocturne you play raw sometimes, like if it's in your hand, right? But other than that, we have plenty of resources to dig into in order to play Riptide Rex. So 6 might, 6 damage. You're developing something. It's not like Snapvine. Where you have to, they challenge each other and they do damage to each other. They fight basically, but just a direct 6 damage to a unit at a battlefield, very important. And yeah, it's helped me against those certain matchups a lot. Speaking of countering certain decks, this is basically meant to counter any type of swarm decks in Victor or going wide with Darius. So Thousand Tail Watcher, very strong card. 7 runes, 1 power, 7 might. Accelerate, right? You pay an extra rune and a power. When you play me, give enemy units -3 this turn to a minimum of 1, and that is all enemy units, base and battlefields. Really strong. It's just like a static ability that affects the whole entire board. And then if you accelerate it, you can move in, and more than likely you are taking back some control of the battlefield. So it is a card you play from behind. You don't really want to pay this raw onto a battlefield because then they can kind of just react to it on their turn. But yeah, the fact that this can just give everything -3 and then you can kind of sneak your way back into a victory is really strong. Strong card. Everyone kind of poops their pants when they see this card come down because they're like, oh, of course, Thousand Tailed Watcher. And a Time Warp. That is right. A win condition. I feel like when I'm brewing decks, like I feel like I just need to have like a strong win condition. So basically, you don't necessarily have to do this like to Time Warp and then double hold for the win, but sometimes you just need to suck the resources out of your opponent, right? So you're conquering maybe 1 or 2 battlefields, right? You play Time Warp. Just it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you win the game with the Time Warp. However, you do get another turn. You ready all your runes and you progress on your side a little more. Sometimes they want to counter some things or use some of their spells for some removal, but then they're using a lot of resources and they're not drawing enough, so it really shrinks down their card size or their hand size, so that you have the better opportunity, the advantage for the game. This can be replaced into a possession build, which I did run before, but I found like Time Warp was just a little better. So basically you would just have to switch out some Mind Runes and Chaos Runes, maybe like 2. Yeah, I would maybe get rid of 2 Mind Runes and put 2 Chaos Runes on. And you could run a Possession build and just play around with that as your like win condition. The issue is it's not really effective against like swarm decks like in Victor or maybe even a Darius build. But Time Warp is just really strong, and sometimes like you play this card and it just shuts down your opponent because they can't do anything. They also don't draw a card and they're wasting their resources. If they're all tapped out, then basically you could do whatever you want in the turn. I'm still waiting for the meta to settle, right? In order to develop an effective sideboard. However, we are running a 3 acceptable losses for action speed. Each player kills one of their gears. We are not running any of the gears. So for 1 rune, this is basically kind of meant to counter any Dazzling Aurora decks. Also, another Sneaky Hand deck because we can switch it out with a Vision Poro or a Watchful Sentry, just in case you are going against control decks that are running a lot of removal. So if you're playing Sneaky deck hands consistently, or like the 2, and they're getting removed, maybe in the next matchup, right, you switch out for another one so that they're even either wasting more of their resources to kind of like take out your Sneaky deck hands because they don't want you to play any hidden cards, or they just like kind of run out of removal to the point where you can get in with a Sneaky deckhand and you can start hiding things. So that is it for the deck list. Yeah, really cool. Check it out. Like, you should definitely play Teemo. I think it is very important to play Teemo, to understand Teemo, so you know how to also play against Teemo. Like, that is incredibly important as well. Other than that, I've talked enough. Few announcements. I usually stream daily, so if you want to play, hit me up on our Discord. The link is in the description. We got a nice little community of people playing games, testing out decks. Nothing too serious, very casual before the game comes out. So we know what cards, or we know how much money to invest into what cards when the game comes out. So we can kind of like figure out what we would like to play. Don't forget to subscribe to enter yourself to win that Proving Grounds box set in October. I would greatly appreciate that. Your support has been great. I love the way you guys are reacting to the videos. Thank you so much. It really means the world to me. I'm just a dude playing a card game, and yeah, the fact that many of you have been reaching out and giving me awesome feedback means the world to me. So with that being said, thank you very much. I hope you all have a wonderful day and enjoy the gameplay. Peace. Alrighty, back to some commentary of the gameplay. So as you can see, we are running Teemo. We have the monastery as the other battlefield and Bandle Tree as ours. Our champion unit will be the strategist. Looking at our opening hand, we did have a Nocturne, which we want to see from our deck by looking at the top cards with strategist and or vision poro and or stack deck, and we get rid of the time warp because we won't be able to play that for quite some time. The funny thing is about Teemo, it is like, I guess it's not a beginner's deck. Like, you really have to know like a lot of mechanics of the game, the way spell stack happens, and the way certain interactions are very important to know. So by no means this is a beginner deck. It's like more of like mid to like advanced, I guess you could say. Although once you get to know like some of the keywords and the way the deck functions, then it's actually relatively easy. So starting off, we did decide to go first. Kind of like a little bit of a disadvantage, but it's okay. We can stack deck and we can pop up our Teemo, which I believe I do, into my hand, and that's when the mind games, so to say, start. We are playing against a Leona deck, so stun is kind of awkward in this matchup. Stun is just overall really strong. Like, Leona is tending to be really good. Actually, I'm sorry, we did end up going second, I believe. Yeah, that is right. He was not able to do anything. So we got some options. Start off with the stack deck. Just a really strong turn 1 card. You get to kind of like, look at your first 3 turns and kind of like dictate what you really want. Let's see what we get. So a Mystic Poro, a Tide Turner, and a Blast Cone Fey, 2 of which are hidden cards. Vision Poro, I was like a little greedy. I think I decided to pick up the Vision Poro. Yep. Mainly because I really wanted that Nocturne to be the next card. Or wait, let me see. I forgot what I actually picked. He did actually look at the card accidentally too. Like, I was teaching someone to play with TTS. Like, he knows the rules very well in terms of the actual game. However, with TTS, he was just unaware of some keybinds, so he wasn't sure how to look at cards that are face down, and he accidentally looked at mine. I did not actually get the Vision Poro. I thought maybe that was some other game. I decided to go with the Blast Cone Fey because with Leona in the matchup, they have like 4 or 5 might, some units, 3 might with Sunlit Guardians and stuff, so minusing everything to ensuring a showdown goes in our favor is very good. So I just develop a Watchful Sentry and decide to pass the turn over to him. Unfortunately, I wasn't really... Okay, there you go. Yeah, so we're moving around. I'm still learning how to kind of navigate commentary with TTS. I've been recording the streams, so we decided to develop a Solari Shieldbreaker. Solid card for the deck. When you play me, stun a unit. So he stuns my Watchful Sentry at base, but it doesn't really do anything. It's just like the only thing he could develop. And now I'm very glad that he couldn't accelerate anything or put anything open to a open battlefield, because now the mind games start. So obviously I move my Watchful Sentry over into Bandle Tree, and then by tapping, here's that resource management I talked about, like not being, you tap, you're just able to put things into your hand with Teemo as well. I put my champion unit into my hand, and then instead of burning a power, I can just tap a rune and put them onto the battlefield. Really strong. Doesn't, normally I'd be burning two, if I was any other deck, or just burning one, messing around with my resources, but this is just so strong, and still after I've done all those things, I can still have two runes open to do to play something else. So yeah, I think I get to the point where I get like max hidden cards, and it was just kind of really difficult to also keep track. So make sure you keep track. Like obviously, in certain games, like you could just like in real life, you'll be able to, just look at the card. But setting up what I did was pretty crucial to make sure that Bandletree doesn't get taken away from me. So I put my strategist down, and I put a blast cone Fey, I believe. I forgot now. Then I just decided to develop a watchful sentry, and I passed the turn. Also got a point for scoring. Never forget to do that. I did have one of the chaos runes there, but again, like I said, the chaos runes are there just to hard cast Nocturne if it does end up in your hand. Other than that, we don't really need, because we're really dependent on not running any cards that sacrifice runes in power costs. And yeah, it just ends up being really good, because it is often so that a lot of decks don't have that type of resource management. Maybe Lux, right? Because they have that extra 2 runes, and if they're playing some energy conduits. But it seems so, like in any matchup, they don't get up to as many runes as I do at those instances. He messes up by burning the wrong power, so I just told him he can like look into his deck and kind of figure out, grab the rune that he needed in order to play successfully. Like I said, we are all learning, right? And we'll make mistakes, and that is why we are doing it. So if you ever want to play, hit me up on Discord. Link is in the description. And then we can test out some decks, learn the game, learn the interactions, and yeah, before the game actually comes out. So Leona is like oddly like really strong. Like when I first read the cards for Leona, the champion units, the legend, and some other things, like I thought the stun effect is going to be like a little underwhelming, right? However, it seems like Leona is like secretly like OP. There are some instances I'm playing with one other friend of mine, Treeman, and he just like his Leona deck is so on point. That is so hard to get over. Stun is an extremely strong mechanic, and it's hard to beat. But Teemo seems to be the answer if you are smart enough into messing around with their decision-making skills. So it is like a bunch of mind games, right? But when you get to that point of like mastering Teemo, or kind of like knowing what you need to play when, and kind of expecting or looking into the future a little bit of what your future turns are for your opponent, then you can run away with the game very easily. So he decides to charm, right? In an attempt to fizzle away my my hidden cards, because if I'm not holding onto a battlefield, they go away. But in response to the charm, you can play a card hidden. So I decided to use Blast Cone Fey, and it doesn't necessarily target a battlefield. Like it doesn't say this battlefield or anything else. It just says a unit. So the fact that I minus two his Solari Shield Breaker with a buff on it, it is at 3. It goes down to 1, and then they trade, and I get to draw a card. So very strong. Like I'm just telling you, the hidden cards. Like I said, they're not expecting some things. So this won me the battlefield. It didn't win me the battlefield, but it won me like at least I could trade for the showdown. And with a shield bearer, that's I'm sorry, with a watchful sentry, I get to draw a card. I do get to grab a Ember Monk, which is really strong, and still the Blast Cone Fey is a unit on board or on the battlefield, so I don't have to necessarily waste my Teemo strategist right away. So really strong turn for me. Get rid of one of his units, draw a card. He wastes a resource and charm, and I also develop one more might onto Bandletree. So now I'm just thinking of what to kind of hide next, and like my my path throughout the game. So I can obviously capture the one battlefield. We did discuss briefly that he actually did score the battlefield because he conquered first and then played Charm. So I gave him the point in the conquer from the Solari unit. So yeah, he gets his point. Yeah, because he technically did conquer because I allowed it to happen, and then he played Charm. So then I decide what to do next with what to hide. I didn't really want to commit the power into the battlefield with maybe a scout Teemo. So I decided to develop a monk on my base, move in with my watchful sentry, right, giving me a point. I go up to 2. I still have another card that I can hide, and look at these runes, you know, again, a lot of resources, not burning anything, and I decide to put fight or flight hidden onto the battlefield. I tap 1, you know, not burning any power, hiding stuff, and now I think at this point I actually do hide the consult the past because I'm running low on cards into the Bandle tree. And yeah, so, you know, hiding things. I have both battlefields. I have 3 cards hidden, which is the optimal situation. Fight or flight can happen, so I can move stuff around. Also, when I'm playing any of these hidden cards, my monk gets +2. So that's just insane, right? So if I next turn decide to do anything in terms of popping up and moving in, you know, it gets up to 2, 4, 6. 10 might monk insanely strong. So basically you're just playing very cautiously when you're playing Teemo. That is the most important thing, and resource management. So if they do somehow tend to take the battlefield, you want to have those resources, right, to play out the cards that you need to take it back, right? So I hold both battlefields, so he's going to be spending like a lot of or using a lot of high cost cards, right, to kind of like develop a board at base. He develops his Leona there, which is scary because it does stun when it is attacked, and stun is a very, very strong mechanic. So he decides to move in with his Lee Sin at 5 might. I do not believe it is buffed. Nope, it is not buffed, and he did not stun, so he can't get a buff from the legend effect. And then at this point, I kind of want to hold onto the battlefield next turn, get a point on heads, so I decide to fight or flight. And then I'm targeting his Lee Sin, right, before the showdown happens, so that he just goes back to his base. And then I have plenty of hidden cards in hand to, I believe I developed the scout next turn, but we'll see. So Ember Monk is now at 6, although that's relatively, it's irrelevant, just to know, just to, you know, show that when a hidden card is played, this goes up to 6. And then I'm just looking, making sure that I have the cards are still there, or because, you know, sometimes when you're hiding so many stuff, you tend to forget what's actually there. So I double hold, I go up to 5. And it's pretty, like, still early game, you know, this is turn 4, I believe, turn 4 or 5, and look at all the runes I have, you know, 3 away from a full board of runes. I hide a Tide Turner, I believe it was, and then there's nothing really I can do. I'm sitting, like, extremely safe, but I believe I do, actually, pop the Turner, or pop the I want to keep the Ember Monk at base so I can flip around with the Tide Turner. And then there's not much I could do, so I'm safe. I want to keep like as many open runes as I can. There's nothing to worry about. I'm ahead 4 points. Yeah, there's the Tide Turner, so it's cool because, like, if he decides to move in, I can switch out my Ember Monk. It gets +2, so it becomes to a 6, right? I save the Tide Turner. I surprise him. He decides to cast Rune Prison on the Blastcone Fae, I believe, was the target. Yep. Which means he's going to dictate and move in the next turn. He places Solari Chief. Enters exhausted. I think I actually kind of... Yeah, so I commit to tapping Consult the Past in response of the Solari War Chief, so I get to draw 2. Kind of whiff on the hand there a little bit, but it's fine. And then I proactively play the Strategist in an attempt to grab a Nocturne onto base. I do have to reveal them, obviously. Unfortunately, I don't get anything. I do have a couple hidden cards, but since there's nothing to target, the damage doesn't happen. But I develop 4 Might on Banditry, and I have the opportunity to hide next turn. I believe he does actually end up taking this battlefield next turn. However, with a double hold, or this turn, yeah, he decides to move in there. Was double checking to see if the Teemo was at reaction speed. However, it is not. Very important, so you just can't do that whenever. So he decides to actually, yeah, he commits both. Strategist dies. He does get the point. He does take the base away from us. However, there's things that we can do next turn, and we kind of take it back. So we do have options, right? We could develop some cards on base, kind of build up an army. He decides to switch the turn over to me. We do draw a Consult the Past. Again, look at those runes. You know, we're pretty much full up on runes, so there's a lot of things that we could do. I decided to commit to a hard cast of Consult the Past to draw 2. And then with those draws, I get... I just want to make sure I showed it to him. I get a Sneaky Deckhand. And then I get another Blastcone Fae. So I think I decide to hard cast a Blastcone Fae or develop... I think at this point I just want to develop a base. Exactly, yeah. So I'm tapping 2 for a Watchful Sentry. I want to develop some units on board because I have them in my hand. I decide to tap 3 more. I'm sorry, for Sneaky Deckhand. I do play that base because they're occupied. I do have the Tide Turner on the other battlefield, the monastery, so that I can switch out my Ember Monk in. So that's pretty safe. But I think I do end up decide to commit on another Teemo, I think, or a Blastcone Fae. I think I put down the Scout in this situation. I was streaming last night this game, so yep. So there's a Scout. I decided to put it on board. It is at a 4, but it's irrelevant because there's nothing going on there. Just that extra might, looking at his side of the base to make sure that I can, with that 6 might from the Ember Monk, if I decide to flip Tide Turner, I'll be able to hold that battlefield next turn. So then I switch over to his turn, or I pass turn, and now this is kind of like the crucial point in figuring out what is going to happen. The combo is effective with Tide Turner and Ember Monk, so I just kind of have to see what he's doing. So, on his side, he wants to take this base. I am at 6 points, so he has to make sure that I don't hold and conquer. That's basically his thing. So he has to take this battlefield back somehow. Stunning is a thing that can happen. So he moves in with his 4 Might Solari War Chief. Right, so this is the combo that I was talking about. He did get a point for last turn because he didn't do the holding. He forgot to count a point for holding. So he moves in with his Solari War Chief. So what I do, I decide to flip the Tide Turner. Now, Ember Monk becomes a 6 Might unit. I was just making sure that he understands the process. So they swap out. Ember Monk becomes 6. And I hold the battlefield because there's nothing he could do. Yeah, he's all tapped out, so he doesn't have anything to stun. Or if he didn't, maybe he has... Oh, no, he does have an on guard, so his thing goes up to 6. However, still not enough might to take the battlefield. He still has some runes left open. I thought he was all tapped out. But I don't think he actually responds with anything. He does have a... Oh, so he decides to stun. Okay, yeah, so he decides to stun the Ember Monk. So Ember Monk does not do damage, right? So this is how stun works, and this is why it's so strong. Does not do damage. But he decides to commit his 6 might to the Ember Monk. Now, since he was attacking, he goes back because that 6 damage isn't enough to take the battlefield because there's still 2 might on board. So the attacker, when a unit is stunned and there's no more might to distribute to the rest of the units, he goes back to his battlefield, and I believe that is the only thing he can do for the turn. He develops a buff because of Rune Prison and Leona's effect. Oh, I'm sorry, he did have an extra might onto it because of the buff. He forgot to buff. But still, the Watchful Sentry is there on battlefield. And then I get to he decides, for some reason, to pull back his Leona because he's a little scared of the things that I can do, and he wants to make sure that he can maybe double conquer and hold next turn. However, this is going to be the move that kind of makes him lose the game. And like I said, just Teemo making your opponent overthink certain situations is just really, really good, right? There's so many tricks you can do with this deck. So when he switches over the turn to me, there's actually 2 different outs that I could have done. The Lee Sin was sitting at 6 with a buff. He was all tapped out, right? Switches over the turn for me. I gain a point from holding. And then I wanted to Blast Cone Fae and then move in my units. Or I wanted to play 2 Blast Cone Faes and move in my units to kind of take the battlefield and conquer. But the thing is, I draw a Fight or Flight. And sometimes it's just that easy, guys. Seriously. I was just like, oh, well, that's relatively cheap and awful and kind of anticlimactic. However, it helps me win the game. So I Fight or Flight, moving his Lee Sin back into base, and all I have to do is move in because I held and then I conquered. So I win the game at 8 points. So as you can see, really tricky deck. And you can tell the opponent with some of the decisions he made, he should have kept that Leona on the base, but you know, sometimes you're forcing your opponent to overthink their plays and they make mistakes, and that's why I like Teemo, because it messes up with their decision-making skills. So that is it for the commentary. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!